Welcome, and my name is David Messner. I'm from Rain Pro Pixel, and we're an ArcViz studio, as well as we design and install and consult on LED volumes, large LED volumes for live event venues as well as studios. And so I wanted to talk with you here in UE5 about a challenge that we have when we first came into the ecosystem. Let me kind of illustrate some of the challenges that you face, or quickly you'll face, if you're trying to just bring an image into Unreal Engine, and then some of the solution, or the solution that we've come up with. It's kind of a practical way that you can exactly line up an image the way you want it. So let me just start with by creating just a simple box, and I'll jump over here into the modeling and grab the box brush, and so we'll drop that here and click complete. And let me just go ahead and size this up a little bit to kind of give you an idea. So, if you wanted to put an image on this box, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to come in and you're going to import into UE your image that you want to create. And so I'll jump over into my materials folder, and I've got an image, this screenshot I took earlier from my desktop, and imagine I wanted to put it on that box. So, we all are very familiar with, you come in here and you can create a material. So I'm just going to call it sample. So you create this material, you jump in, and if this is your first time ever trying to put an image into UE5 or any of the Unreal Engine versions, you're going to be faced with, well, what in the world do I do? And you may get creative enough, kind of like I was when I was poking around, and I just drug my texture in here, and it created a texture sample. And then after poking around on some more tutorials, I realized, if I connect up the RGB over here, and boom, all of a sudden I've got in my sample over here where I'm trying to basically see what I'm doing, I say, I've got an image on a box. And so I can place that. Maybe I want to put it on this side or that side. Well, not so fast. As you all know, is that if we save this and we come in here, there's not a lot of control at this point where we're at in this little example. There's not a lot of control. And so if you've been like me, you find yourself maybe a little bit frustrated because you come in here and you realize, all right, I want to add my material to my box. And so I come over to my material, my sample, I drag it in here, and great, I've got it on the box. That looks fine. Maybe. And so the problem is, as you start to skew it, maybe I have an image that's longer than shorter. Well, the only way I can actually get my image to look maybe not squished into a box or stretched into a box is actually to stretch and move that box around. Well, that's not always ideal. So let me kind of show you the other challenge, and then I'll show you the solution. So let me jump over to SketchUp here, and I've created a 16 by 9 screen, and it's literally 16 by 9 minus a couple inches for an edge. And I've got a couple different textures on here. I've got a black texture and a white texture. And I can use Datasmith to bring that on over. So I'm going to come right here and just choose to export that at. And I'm going to call this 16 by 9 screen, and I'm going to call it 01. I've already done this once before just to prepare myself. So let me jump over here in Unreal, and let me go to my Datasmith folder, and I happen to have my 16 by 9 screen right here, and I'll drag and drop it right in, and boom, comes in, and I've got my white texture, my black texture, and even my guy for perspective. Let's go ahead and delete him. Yes, I want to delete him. So if you click the screen that I've created, we've got a couple textures here. So now we're getting somewhere. So let me go back to my sample material, and I want to put my image right in there. So I'll come to sample and select that, and let's just jump back in here to materials, and load that in there, and oh man, now I've got my texture, but it's repeated, I mean, thousands of times over. Who knows how many times? And there is literally no way to do pretty much anything with it. And that's just the way it comes in if you just simply put a texture sample on a material and drop it on your mesh. So how do we control that? Well, you could look at some of the way the pros do it, and let me give you an example. Let me jump over. If you go to Epic Games right now, it's May 2022, and you can go right now and go under the free category, Epic Games Content, and Twinmotion has released some amazing post-human models, some music instruments, but it's got this great pack right now that's called High Tech 1. And I mean, if you look through it, this is some really cool stuff. And we got a bunch of screens in here, all kinds of technology. But the cool thing about it is you can download these and kind of dig into how they got their images on their mesh. So I went ahead and did that. And I went ahead and pulled it in one particular TV. And I pulled it into just a level here, and we'll save our selected so we can jump back over here. And here's their TV. They call it BP_TV02, but I mean it's quality. And what's interesting about this is if I go in here and I turn off my lights, it's got an emissive material going on, so it's throwing off some light. You got that burst of the sunlight coming through the skyline there, and so it's a great material. So let's look at how they got their material on there. So let's just pull this open here, and let's twirl this down and get into how they got some of their materials on there, what their materials look like. Go down to TV, and I've got this element 2 down here. So as I dig into this, let me just look at what element 2 looks like and open it up for you. So right off the bat, we've got a whole lot of things that are there that they built into it. So I can change the color map. I can tint the color mask. If there's a color mask, I can tint it with a color emissive. I've got reflections and relief and the UV coordinates. And so there's some good stuff. But again, I wonder, well, how did they get that done? And so if you start looking into this a little deeper, you realize that this has a parent material, this MISD opaque. So I'm going to open this up and go into this parent material. And here we go. We've got some of the basic different elements you saw earlier, but then that has a parent material. So we can go into that. And then we get into some serious nodes and building of a blueprint that is really, frankly, over my head, most people's heads, to try to recreate. And if you try to take this and rip it off and replicate it, it just looks like a whole lot of ways things can break for me, and it's going to be a little bit challenging. So what I want to do is show you my practical way that we've put together a material, a master material, and then you can make child instances of it. And it's a material that you can manage several different parameters. You can change its emissiveness, so we can make it glow. We can make it spin, its rotation. We can offset its U and its V, so we can place it. We can scale its U and V and place it. And so it's a pretty practical one. So let me show you my material, my base material there. And then, let me get back to my materials over here. So I'll show you my base material that I've created, and it's pretty simple. But yet it's very practical for how we use it. And you can then now, on a mesh that you've created, you can place your image exactly where you want it. So we can adjust scale, we can adjust our offsets, we can adjust our rotation, and we also can adjust the emissive quality of the image, as well as we've got it so you can swap this out. So this is the parent image. And you might recognize this kind of UV mapping sample here that we've used as kind of its base. That's the rainbow look, and it lets you see it with the numbers and letters and the colors where the UVs are coming in. And so then we take that and we will then use that to guide how our image will go on. And so what I want to do is I want to recreate that for you, and then I want to jump back over to our 16 by 9 screen. So let me come in here, and we'll come back in this, and we'll fix this way it's tiling, as well as get that kind of nice emissive glow. Now, it may be not the perfect emissive, but it's actually really good for the practical use that you're going to have it for. So let me walk you through how to go about and build this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, and I'm just going to return this to its base value, so it's black and the white material, and we will jump back to our materials folder. And I would suggest you have a materials folder, and in it you have textures. And so if you're really, really new to this, materials are where you put all of the blueprint and the nodes and the information to be able to guide how that material is applied. But the texture is going to be your flat 2D graphics that you're going to use to do that. So it could be the texture of a rock or wood, or it could be a graphic like you're seeing right here. So let me go ahead and I'm going to delete this sample. We'll just force delete it. Go back to my drawer, and let's start from scratch here. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come in here and create your material, and I'm going to call it base. And so we'll start there, and I'm going to go and jump into it. So this is just your base material and the graph editor, the material graph, and there's really nothing to it. So we're going to do a little cheat here where we come in, and I've got this UV map reference that you saw when I was showing you the other base example. I'll have a link for you to be able to download that. It's something you could search on the internet and find. What's nice about this is it's square, and so it's helpful as a starting place. So I'm just going to drag that onto here, and it's going to create a texture sample. So I'm going to link that texture sample right over to my base color, and I'm going to jump and change this to a box and back out just a little bit and turn it so we're kind of looking at the whole box. And then apply and save. So then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open our content drawer, and I'm going to open up our base here just so I can reference it and be precise with my directions, and then you can kind of see the overall direction we're going here. And we're going to create we're going to create this texture coordinate node. So we'll jump back over here and go to our base, and we'll right click on here and texture coordinate, and so what we're going to do is we're going to right click here and type texture coordinate, and that'll pop right in there. So we've got our texture coordinates, and so I'm going to drag these over just a little bit here, and I'll bring this guy up, and we'll make room. So the first thing we want to do in looking at our base is we want to manage our scale. So this is the scale of the U and the V. So what we have to do is we're going to first start with a divide, and we'll come in here and divide, and we'll just add that in there. And we'll come in here and put an append. Node append vector there, and we'll drop that right under there. And then we'll right-click on it and create a constant. So we'll just create one constant, and we can copy that and paste that in there. So we've got two constants. So what we're going to want to do, I'll zoom in here a little bit, and we're going to right-click and convert the top constant to a parameter, and that's going to be called the U scale. And we're going to want to come in here with our default value and do 1. And then we're going to come in here with our other constant and right-click and convert to a parameter and do a V scale. So this is going to scale the U and the V and bring them together. And so we're going to add default one of 1, and then we'll just connect all this together. Here we go. 1, A goes in. So the U can go into A, V can go into B, and then we'll bring this into the B of divide and come over here and bring our texture coordinates in. So let's go ahead and select all of those. We'll right-click on it, and we'll create comment and call that UV scaling. And then we'll go ahead and save and apply. Get that done. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we'll jump back over here, and we're going to do the offset. So this offset's going to adjust how not only how it scales, but how it moves left and right, up and down, however you want to say it, but on the various coordinates of your mesh, of your U and your V. So let's look at how this makes a difference. So if I come in here and I change this to I selected the U offset, so let's change that to 2, its default value. Well, it didn't do a whole lot here, but if you create and change it to like 1.2 and jump down, you see how it shifts it over. So what these values do is give you the ability to precisely adjust your texture on your mesh according to the U and the V. So what we'll do is take that back to 0, because we're on a 0 basis. So we'll create two constants, we'll append those, we'll drop it into an add node, and then we'll pull off the divide and link in here. So let's go ahead and do that. So slide this over just a little bit, constant, and we'll copy that and paste it, bring it in here, and then we'll do an append, and then we can go ahead. You can do these in whatever order you want to. I'm just going to do them, connect it up, and we are going to add instead of dividing this time. So I'm going to swing this over into the B and pull from divide into A. So let me right-click on our first constant, and we're going to convert it to a parameter, and we will call it U. Come on, type U offset. We'll leave it at 0, and right-click on here, convert to a parameter, and we'll call it V offset. And we'll leave that. Go ahead and select those. We'll go ahead and create a comment, and it'll be UV offset. All right. So then our next thing that we want to do is we want to, and this is honestly the most confusing one of all of them, or complicated one, but it's really not even all that complicated. So we're going to adjust the rotation. So we're going to adjust it so that as you're entering the rotation in your child materials, you'll be able to read it from clockwise in 360 degrees. But for instance, let me just change the default value to like 34. All right. So we'll enter that, and you see it literally spins the mesh, or excuse me, the texture that you're using. So you can do that and use it to adjust your materials that way. So let's go ahead and build this. So we're going to start with a custom rotator. We'll do a 2-vector node here, and then do a divide as well as a constant. So let's walk through that. So we'll pull over here, and we're going to go to a custom rotator right here. All right. And then we are going to divide. So we'll put that, and we'll do a 2-vector constant. That's 2 vectors right there. And what we need to do is change this to 0.5 and 0.5. And then we'll go ahead and drop that into the A. And then we'll create another constant. And we'll call that, and right click on it, convert to a parameter, and we'll call that our UV rotator. And then what we'll want to do is come over here in the divide, and instead of 2 at the bottom, instead of 2 at the constant B, we'll do -360. And that will help do the math for us, so when we're adding it in there, our scales will be correct. So, oops, I made one mistake here. This is not going into there. It's going, actually, I'm going to break this, break the link, and then that needed to go in the rotator center. That's what the 0.5 and 0.5 does. In other words, it centers your rotation. Rather than rotating from somewhere else on the texture, it's coming from the center. And then we'll bring this to the bottom here. And then we will drag over from our offset, plug it in the UVs, and the rotator value will then come swinging all the way around up here and come into the UVs up here. All right. So let's right-click on this, select all them, excuse me, left click and select all these, then right click, create a comment. So we'll call it UV rotator. All right. So let me kind of just line all these up. There's one more parameter we want to add, and then one thing we want to convert to a parameter. And I'll walk you through that here in just a minute, but let's double check ourselves. Jumping on back over here, so we've got our custom rotator, we've got the 0.5 and 0.5 going to the center. We've got the UV rotation. I called it rotator on the other one, but that's okay. And we pulled that into A, and then B is -360. And then all those values drop into the UVs. All right, so let's come back into here. And now let's do the one last thing that I want to do is I want to create the ability to adjust the emissive value. So pretty simple. All we need to do is create one more constant, and we're going to right click on this, and we're going to convert it to parameter and call it emissive. And then we are actually going to multiply. First time we've used multiply thus far. And what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the B multiplied by the RGBA output of your texture sample up top here. And then we're going to plug all of that over into the emissive color. And then we're going to take the emissive, and we're actually going to make its base value 1. So we're going to make that 1. So it is coming off with a 1 color. Oh, you know what? Let me actually change that back to 0. I forgot. We are multiplying, so it's literally adding the 1-on-1, so it's adding the UV on top of the UV, so it's making it punch. So we can adjust that later on. So I'm going to select those and create a comment and call it emissive value. Then the last thing we want to do is we want to right click on our texture sample, and we want to convert it to a parameter. What this will do is allow us to swap out this texture in the future. So we're going to just call it texture. So now we have the ability to swap out the texture in the future as we want to use it. Now, one thing I want to do is I'm seeing, if you come in here and we are off just a little bit in our rotation, it looks like. So I want to see what's going on here. So we've got, maybe it's because they're a constant 1. Yes, that was it. We needed to take that divide and make it 0 and 360. So we did get that, so we're all set. All right, so what we've done is we've literally created our very own base material that we can adjust the scale, the offset, the rotation, and then we can even swap out the texture. And let me show you then how this works. So let's apply and save. Keeping in mind, remember our TV mesh that I created in SketchUp earlier that looked like 100 different little pictures. So let's save all of this. And I'm going to go ahead and shut this down while we're here. Yes, I want to save. So we'll watch that, just get that saved. Okay, so let's come back here and let's go ahead and we're going to create our own from our base. We'll right click on it and we will create a material instance. And let's call it MI for material instance. And the was for master material, if you're wondering. And then we'll call it TV screen. Big old TV screen. All right. So now let's jump in, and what you'll see is we don't have any more options to select the nodes or do anything. We just get our box with our material, but we got all of these parameters over here on the right that we can adjust. So let's go ahead and change out the texture. What we'll want to do is I'm going to go back and go into my textures folder. I'm going to select that screenshot, and I'm going to go ahead and load that in there. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and select all of our parameters because I will want to adjust all of them, maybe except for the rotator. I won't really need to rotate anything on this one, I don't believe. So I'm going to save this, and then we will jump back into the TV. And let's go ahead and apply it. So I'll find my material. I can select. Oop, I lost my drawer there. So we're going to find the TV screen. I'm going to select it, come back over here and load it in. And we still have our big bunch of different images going on here. But the great thing is now we have something that we can control. So let me go ahead and I'm going to bring up our material. Let me see if I can get this to do, let's see what we'll do. Move it to the right side, and then we'll just move this over here. So I can, first off, I can adjust my scale. So as you can see, as I move it, my scale moves. So we got things going on here. So it's getting a little bigger. So we're like at 24. I'm going to go ahead and move. That's the U scale. I'm going to move the V scale. I'm going to move it to type 24 here just to kind of keep up with it. So we're getting close. So we're going to stretch it out. Now we can get pretty close in looking at our left and our right. And I'm going to eyeball it here, kind of between the two. And then we can fine tune it here in a second. So roughly around 196. Now my vertical scale, I can bring up. And it feels about right. I can get in there and fine tune it if I wanted to, but I think we're good for now. You get the point. So all of that has given us the ability. Now, if I needed to offset it, I could offset it this way, up and down. I could offset it left and right. But the great thing is we were able to accomplish all of that without needing to use the offset or the rotation. But here's the cool part. Now we have the ability to create and adjust the emissive value. So I can bring up this, and now it begins to glow like an actual screen. So look here, We've even seen some glow on the ground. So what I'm going to do is let me shrink this down for now, and I'm going to come in to my actual scene, and let me turn off my overhead light, and boom, now we have an emissive material that we have been able to control, just like the TV that came with Twin Motion. We were able to add a material. We can control this. Now, you could get even fancier. You could control the roughness and the specular and all of that. But I think for my instance and our use, this is a great base starting material that you can build off of and add parameters to. You can see you could do that very simply on the master material and create your own master material that you can use over and over again with material instances for different things that you want to place your image exactly where you want it. So I hope that was helpful. Please like, subscribe, follow us for more practical tutorials like this, and ask any questions in the comments. We'll try to get back with you. But thank you for joining us, and I hope this is helpful. And I wanted us to create the tutorial that I wish we could have found when we first started trying to apply images to meshes in Unreal Engine.